All right, let's talk about something that's becoming more and more important every single day, how companies can actually prove they're making a difference on climate change. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the essential rulebook for all of this, ISO 14064. We're going to see how it helps organizations credibly manage and report their climate impact.
I mean, you see it everywhere, right? Companies making these huge claims about being green or carbon neutral. But in a world just full of greenwashing, how do you tell what's real action and what's just clever marketing? How can we actually trust the numbers they're putting out there?
Well, thankfully, there's a way to cut through all that noise. The International Organization for Standardization, ISO, they created a framework to bring some order to the chaos. It's called ISO 14064, and it's pretty much the closest thing we have to a global universal rulebook for counting carbon. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. This standard isn't just one big, clunky document. It's actually a family of standards. And it's set up in a really smart way, broken down into 3 main parts that all work together to create a complete system for a company to manage its impact on the climate. So here's the breakdown. Part 1 is all about getting the big picture, a full, complete inventory of a company's entire carbon footprint. Part 2, that one drills down to the project level, so you can measure the real impact of a specific action you take. And Part 3? Well, Part 3 is the reality check. It's the independent proof that makes sure all the numbers are legit. Now, to make all this a little less abstract, let's imagine a company and follow their journey. We'll call them Greengrocer. They're a retail company, and they really want to tackle their carbon footprint the right way, from beginning to end. First things first, before Greengrocer can do anything else, they need to measure their entire carbon footprint. I mean, you can't manage what you don't measure, right? This is the foundation for everything that comes next, and it's exactly what Part 1 of the standard is for. And this isn't just guesswork. There's a clear process. First, they have to draw a line in the sand and define their boundaries. So that's every store, the main office, every warehouse they have control over. Then they hunt down every single source of emissions inside those boundaries. And finally, they get down to the numbers, calculating everything to build that complete company-wide inventory. So for a company like Greengrocer, what does that actually look like? Well, they've got direct emissions, what we call Scope 1, from things like the fuel burning in their delivery trucks, or, and this is a big one, refrigerants leaking from their cooling systems. Then they've got indirect emissions, like from the electricity they buy from the power plant. That's Scope 2. And even other sources like the emissions from their waste being disposed of, which falls under Scope 3. Okay, so now Greengrocer has the numbers. They know their baseline. Now what? Well, just counting isn't enough. They want to do something about it, to actively reduce those emissions. And this is exactly where Part 2 of the standard comes into play. It's all about taking action through projects. Looking at their data, Greengrocer spots a huge problem area. Their old refrigeration systems. They're leaky, they're inefficient, they just suck up a ton of power. So they decide to launch a really targeted project to replace the whole lot with modern, super efficient units in all of their stores. So how do you actually measure the reduction from a project like this? Well, Part 2 is pretty clever. It's all about comparing 2 different worlds. On one side, you have the baseline world. That's the what-if scenario where Greengrocer did nothing and just kept chugging along with their old, leaky fridges. And on the other side, you have the project world, the new reality with the shiny, upgraded equipment. The difference between those two? That's your emission reduction. And the impact here, it can be massive. Just by stopping the leaks of those old, really potent refrigerants, Greengrocer's project cuts out over 350,000 kilograms of CO2 equivalent every single year. And that doesn't even count the electricity savings yet. That's huge.
So Greengrocer has measured its footprint. They've calculated the reductions from their big project. But how does anyone else know they didn't just make all those numbers up? How do they build trust with their customers, with investors? Well, that is the crucial job of ISO 14064 Part 3.
And really, this is what it all comes down to. Anybody can write a number down in a fancy report, but having an independent, third-party expert come in and check your work, that's what separates a real claim from just wishful thinking. This is the step that truly fights back against greenwashing. So Part 3 gives us 2 really important tools. First up is verification. The easiest way to think about this is like a financial audit, but for carbon. An independent verifier comes in and looks at Greengrocer's past data, like their company-wide inventory from last year, to make sure the numbers are accurate and everything was done correctly. The second tool is validation.
Now, if verification is about checking the past, validation is all about checking the future. A validator looks at the plan for Greengrocer's refrigeration project. They kick the tires on the assumptions and the calculations to confirm that the project is designed properly and is actually likely to achieve the reductions it's promising.
So here's the simplest way to keep them straight. Verification is checking the past, like an auditor reviewing last year's books. Validation is checking the future, like an engineer reviewing the blueprints for a bridge before you build it. Both are absolutely essential for any of this to be credible. Okay, I know that was a lot of technical detail. So why does all this matter? Why go through all this trouble? Well, because following this strict three-part system has a huge real-world payoff, not just for the planet, but for the business itself.
You see, when companies like Greengrocer use this framework, they build genuine trust. They can confidently report their progress and dodge those nasty greenwashing accusations. It helps them manage risks and can even open the door to things like carbon markets. And for all of you out there, this has created a massive demand for skilled people who understand this stuff. Auditors, managers, consultants, it's a whole new career path.
So there you have it. That's the complete cycle. Part 1 gives you the total picture. Part 2 helps you drive real change and measure it. And Part 3 proves to the whole world that it's real. Together, you get this powerful, credible loop for any organization that's serious about its impact on the climate.
This framework really gives us a structured way to ask these important questions. So, it gets me thinking. In your world, whether it's your workplace, your industry, or even your local community, what do you think is the biggest source of emissions? And what kind of project could start to change that?